All right, we've been listening in live to an update out of Calgary regarding the water main break that occurred in that city several days ago that is still an issue. You heard about the efforts to isolate where the water main break was and then to figure out the structural the structure of the remaining pipe, what sort of shape it's in, and the area surrounding it to see how the repairs can be made in a timely manner too. There were a lot of questions about, at least heading into this, about what the timeline would look like for Calgarians to be able to resume full usage of water, because right now they still have to use less water than usual. They're saying that they're not out of the woods yet. People need to continue to reduce their water usage. But I didn't hear a timeline there in terms of when the repair of the water main is expected. Let's bring in CBC's Sarah Galashan, who's been following along with us here. Sarah, did you catch that? Did you hear a specific timeline update for when this would be fixed?
No, Jacqueline. What they said was they are still building that timeline. To be fair, they have said 5 to 7 days, but they're not being more specific to that. And that is because there's still so much work that they're doing, trying to figure out the structural integrity of the pipeline or the pipe around the area where they know that there was the damage. So they have identified the damaged area. There was a hole there. They were able to they've removed that part of it. But they've now brought in another tool that's allowed them to travel, they said 100 meters in one direction, 200 meters in the other direction, allowing them to get a visual on the inside to see if they can see any other areas that might also need to be repaired before moving forward with repairing the area that obviously needs it. And to that, what they need to do is, it's a concrete pipe we're talking about, but they're going to be repairing it with steel. That's going to need to be welded, and then beyond that, they're going to need to flood it to make sure that the water traveling through it is going to be drinkable, safe for drinking. So that is all going to take time. So I think from the sounds of it, they are close to providing a more detailed or more specific timeline, but they're not there yet. And so to this point right now, you've still got the road closed around it. And you heard for some of the questions, the traffic snarling that is the result of that. So there's that inconvenience. But on top of that, of course, the community of Bowness, that's the big question, is when might they be able to be drinking their water again? Because right now they remain under a boil water advisory and have since Wednesday when this pipe burst. So they are doing a lot of testing in that area. Residents might be seeing the water testing, sounding like they might be able to allow for water to be consumed. It might become safe to drink water in that area before this pipe actually becomes fixed. So that's not tied necessarily to the two of them. But so those are the sort of the two things that I guess we're now waiting to see. But in the meantime, it is still conserve the water, reduce the water that you're using, no outdoor watering. And to that, they talked about the number of 214 verbal warnings they've had to give, 176 written warnings they have given for misuse of outdoor watering, and one ticket, and we know that fine can be $3,000, and that was given to construction workers who are using water in a way that they are not supposed to be doing. And just finally, let me say, if you're in Calgary and you see the cities out there watering, you see the golf courses are watering, you heard the mayor just say there, the water they're using is not potable water. It's not water that has been treated or could be used for drinking. And so that's why that activity is allowed to continue. But it's really, all hands on deck. Don't use as little water as you possibly can in Calgary, at least for the time being, because this is a situation where they don't want the reserves to go any lower than they are, and certainly not to get to a 1/3 percentage. Right now they're at the 50% for a number of the underground reserves. They drop to 1/3, and then they have to bring in even more water restrictions for the entire city. So they're hoping to avoid that. Jacqueline?
Sarah, thank you. That's the CBC Sarah Galashan in Vancouver. And for more on this, we've reached writer and commentator Jen Gerson, who is in Calgary. She's the co-founder of The Line. Jen, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
I really wanted to chat with you because I saw your post on X, or formerly known as Twitter, over the weekend, and you laid out what you thought the city of Calgary was, well, doing wrong, but also what you thought they should be doing instead. And it seems like they listened to you, because some of the stuff that they have been doing since Sunday onwards really lines up with your post, including 2 press conferences a day. We just had the second one here. So can you just take us back to why you felt like you needed to, put your communications hat on, as you said that you did there, and put out your suggestions for how the city should be handling this?
Sure. So, of course, I live in Calgary and I've lived in Calgary for about 14 years now. And I lived through the floods and through COVID and through a lot of different kinds of crisis communications over the course of my career, from the perspective of a journalist. And I think that I had a lot of sympathy for the city for the first, 24 hours after the water main break. I understand things can be really stressful for people. You can be right in the thick of it. You don't necessarily understand how you're communicating or what you need to be communicating, right in the beginning of a crisis. But after a couple of days went by, I think I and a lot of other Calgarians just grew increasingly frustrated with just the lack of clear communication that we were getting from the city. So for some reason, and I don't know why, but I decided to, for a moment, take off my snarky and irreverent journalist hat and instead was like, maybe I can help. So I kind of had a bit of an extended thread about just noting the communications had been poor. And I think that as a result of poor communications, we were seeing a growing kind of conspiratorial, anti-authoritarian, run the taps kind of vibe start to emerge. And I just laid out what I thought they were doing wrong and what I thought they needed to improve. A couple of key sort of communications gaps, for example, was I don't think it had been clearly explained to Calgarians why this very big pipe breaking would lead to a crisis for the entire city's potable water supply. That wasn't clear to me. Types of statements, for example, like reduce your water supply by 25%. Normal people don't know how much water they're using on a numerical basis, right? Like that doesn't communicate useful information. And then when the further advice came out, well, reduce your water by a further 25%, that's not even now clear mathematically whether or not you're referring to a 50% overall water decrease or a 37% overall water decrease. So like that wasn't clear, and I just said, look, don't use numbers like that. Use clear behavioral restrictions. Can I bathe? Can I not bathe? Can I run the laundry machine? Can't I? Can I run it once? Can I run it twice? Can I run the dishwasher? Can I water my plants? Can I use non-potable water to water my plants? Those types of clear restrictions are much more palatable and they're much more easy to digest and understand, particularly if they're very consistently applied. And I think that the restrictions haven't been consistently communicated across all of the city's channels. And I think the last thing I said was, one thing was that a lot of leaders were saying things like, if we don't reduce water, Calgary will run out of water. Mm-hmm. Well, what does run out of water mean? Does run out of water mean that my taps are going to go dry? Does run out of water mean we're going to have rotating water restrictions or water shutoffs? What does run out of water mean, right? And I think all of these kinds of communications gaps had led to just an increasing sense of frustration from people who are living through it.